Hello and welcome once again to another bearing removal and installation video featuring Boca bearings. Now today's engine is a very old engine that I got from a customer. It dates back to 1981 and it is an OS FS40 four-stroke engine. It's not the Surpass series. This is the series of engines that preceded the Surpass series. Now the history of this engine is, this particular engine is that it had been run a few times, but it's been sitting in an airplane hanging from a ceiling for the last 25 years. And believe me, it shows it on the inside too. So we're going to be removing all bearings, all four bearings in this engine, and we'll see if there's any challenges involved in doing that. So let's go straight to the table and take a look at what we've got to do today. Okay, so here on the table I've got the basically empty crankcase of this OS FS40 four-stroke engine, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see in there or not. You can see, hopefully you can see how really bad that counterweight looks on that crankshaft, and that's going to be interesting. So on the table today I've got my piece of wood that I use to tap that main crank or the crankshaft out, and in this instance this drive hub didn't have enough lip for my gear pullers to pull this off, but it doesn't have a woodruff key. It just has a single cut in it, or a slot to hold it in place, so this should just pop right off when I tap this out. I've got my light hammer to do that, short nose punch or flat nose punch to remove that front bearing, and in this box, this Boca box, I've got a specialized set of tools to remove the camshaft bearings, and we'll get into that here momentarily. This is a set of tools that a really awesome machinist and friend had sent to me that he designed, and hopefully one that Boca is going to be creating a variation of in the coming year in 2026, so that more people will be able to do this on their own. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to be concerned about just getting the main bearings out of this crankshaft. So I've also got my heat resistant glove, my desk vise, and my heat gun. So let's heat this thing up and see if we can just get the crankshaft out first, because this is pretty rough looking. Alright, let's see if that's enough to at least get this crankshaft out here in the bearings. Is that thing moving? Wow, that thing's not moving at all. There we go. So there's our drive hub, and this thing came out with the main bearing came out with that crankshaft, so that's a good thing. This front bearing, you can see how rough that thing is. Let's see if this punch is the right size to get in here and tap that thing out. Okay, so very good. So that's out. Now we're just left with, I don't know how hot this is, not too hot. We're left with trying to get this rear bearing off here, and what I do when I have these situations is I'll just stand this crankshaft up or nose down like this, hold that, it is a little bit warm, hold that flat nose punch on it so that I can just kind of tap that thing down. Well, these things can be pretty stubborn, and I need to rotate it around a little bit too. And take my glove off, and there we go. We got that bearing off. Boy, that is one rough looking bearing. Funny though, as rough as it is, it really doesn't feel all that bad. But these are going to be going directly into the garbage. This crankcase really needs to be cleaned up. So let's go ahead and move on to part 2 of this. Let's move these guys out of the way. And the crankshaft, we don't need that right now. Let me go ahead and talk about this new set of tools that was provided to me. So, a really awesome machinist friend gave me this set, and I've used this set of tools on here, and as you can see, he sent it to me with a little camshaft bearing on here. And the theory behind this is very similar to just about any other internal ID removal bearing, where it's got a split. Let me take this thing off here, take that bearing off here first. Where it's got a split jaw. It's got a little flare on it, and you just insert this little rod in there and it opens it up and it grabs the inner race of the bearing. So basically I'm going to do this piece first, the cam cover. This was in the ultrasonic cleaner already, and I don't anticipate that being an issue whatsoever. I'm going to need a couple of tools here to do this though. Wrenches to hold these things. So this piece here is actually specifically designed to pull the bearing out of the cam cover. He had given me one that has some holes that were a different size, but this one is just a conical shape, so it's more universally adaptable. Thing is, this is much longer too. So the theory of this is going to be that I'm going to insert this in here like this, grab onto that bearing, get that thing fully inserted in there. Now insert this rod that expands the jaws of that bearing so that it's on there. Now what I'm going to do is wind this particular nut down and hold this one of these nuts and rotate this, and it will extract that bearing. So the holding is going to take place with some channel locks, since I don't really have the other size open and wrench there. So I'm going to be rotating this lower nut while holding the top, and I might be able to do this holding it up so you can see it. I don't know if I can hold it up while you can see it or not. In theory, it's extracting the bearing right now. And there it is. So the camshaft cover came off. No bearing installed. Now let me just run this nut up, and you can see. And see, look at that. That's perfect. How he's got this set up so that that bearing fits perfectly inside that hole. And I just pull that rod out, and there's our extracted camshaft bearing. That one doesn't look too bad. Now, the setup for extracting the one within the case is very similar, but we're going to use slightly different things here. We're going to use, I believe, because of the depth of this, it's going to have to go in here quite a bit further. So we've got some different size bushings we can use to make up that slack, and I'm pretty sure that I used this one here. I've only used this tool like 1 or 2 times. So I've got that fully inserted into that bearing right now. I'm going to insert the rod to open up those jaws. Now run this one nut down so that it's tight. And basically do the same thing. Now I'm going to be holding these and rotating this. And this thing is still a little warm. It's got some oil in there, but it should just be a pretty simple matter of holding these and And there's our bearing. It's just as simple as that. Now, it was still a little warm. It had a little oil in there. But I mean, I've done this. This will be the second time I've extracted bearings using this tool like this. And neither time did I really have to heat it up much. So I pull that rod out so that it relieves the pressure on these jaws, and then you can just pull that bearing right off. And that's all there is to using this wonderful tool that I certainly hope to see actually marketed, a variant of that marketed by Boca in the very near future. So now what's left for me to do is go ahead and get this in the ultrasonic cleaner, take this crankshaft out on the bench grinder and clean it up really well, and then we'll do the installation of all the bearings. Okay, I'm back from cleaning parts. I've got this crankcase all cleaned up and looking beautiful. I know you really can't see deep inside there, but this thing is cleaned up and looking spectacular. So is the little cam cover, nice and cleaned up now. Now I believe, and I apologize for not actually holding this crankshaft up and doing a better show and tell of how it looked when it came out, but look at it now. This is absolutely spectacular. The bench grinder that a buddy of mine, Harvey, gave me for a Christmas gift just works wonders, and that crankshaft looks like it just came out of the factory. On the table also I've got my same wood block to install bearings, my beat up short socket extension to act as a drive for the main crankshaft and the main bearing. I've also got, this is a portion of the camshaft cam bearing removal tool, but this is actually the portion of it that you use to insert the bearings with. So I'll be using that. I've got my hammer. I've got a jar here that's pretty empty because I like to put a pump of Boca's Road Power, Lightning Lube Road Power in here, and I use this exclusively as my oil of choice for installing bearings and reassembly lube for engines. So I'll just put a pump in there and then I'll lubricate all that stuff up. And I've got the two sets of bearings here. So before I talk about the bearings, let me go ahead and just get these parts lubricated up and ready to accept the bearings. And since I've got everything exposed here, I'm just going to put a light coat of oil on everything. I don't know, for some reason I like doing it with my finger better because then I can feel all the spots. Now, I really can't get anything down in that hole, but I'm not too concerned about that. Actually, I can. I can just put one little semi-pump of road power in there and that should oil that up really well. So all of those things are oiled up and really good. So now let's talk about these bearings that we're going to install in here. And I've got the old set of bearings right here. They're kind of dark and gross looking. But and I usually kind of keep these on hand just so I can validate how they came out of the engine. So the rear bearing is a completely open bearing. The front bearing is sealed or shielded on one side, open on the other. And for whatever reason, these old bearings were open on both sides, and I guarantee you I am not going that route here at all. These bearings will be fine to be left completely shielded. There's no reason in my mind at all to take the shields out. You're just exposing them to more garbage and debris by doing that, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to leave the ones that are in this package, unless they came completely open. I don't know yet, so let's reveal and see. So this is the first set here, and this is the set for the main crankshaft, main housing, and it is kit number ENK-075. The camshaft bearings, they are shielded, and this kit number is CSK-003. So let's get all of these bearings out, lubricated up, and let's get these bearings installed. Now, this rear bearing, main rear bearing, has got metal shields on both sides, so I will be removing those. The front bearing is shielded on both sides, and I'll be removing one of those just as they were there. So I'm going to use probably this very small precision screwdriver to do that. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be removing these shields on these bearings because I just really don't think that's necessary. I think these bearings will be just fine for the life of this engine just like this. Why else would they sell them shielded? Okay, so let's remove a shield from one side of this front bearing here. And since these are metal shielded, they're all ZZ bearings, which denotes a metal shield. This is a destructive process to that shield. You cannot undo this once you've done it. And it's just a matter of getting in there right above the inner portion of the race and jamming that in there and just kind of lifting that shield out. So that bearing is ready to be installed. Now we're going to take both of them out of this one here. Okay, there's one shield, one side's out. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now all of our bearings are prepped. Okay, so let me lubricate these bearings up. And whenever possible, I do try to get on the inside of the bearing. I'm going to do these little camshaft bearings probably first. Now, I'm going to set those aside. Actually, so in preparation for installing the main bearings, I'll just talk about this real quick and then I'll install the camshaft bearings. I always install the front bearing first, and then I always put the rear bearing on the crankshaft, just like this. Most times it just wants to slide right over there. Let's see if we can turn it around. Maybe it'll go over that side on this way better. If not, it'll get driven in place. Okay, no worries, it'll get driven in place. There, it's starting to move. It's a tight fit. This bearing's a tight fit on this bearing, on this crankshaft. But I'll put the front bearing in to act as a centering mechanism, and that's why I do that. So let's go ahead and address these bearings here first. So I'm not sure, I'm probably going to lightly heat this, but I don't know that it's really necessary, because this is so clean inside. I heat it up without my glove, that way I know that I'm only getting it just hot enough to hopefully facilitate that. So what I'm going to do here with this bearing installation tool is I'm just going to lay this bearing on here, and it fits perfectly. And I'm going to hold this upright like this, and then just tap this in place. And there you go. Bearing is installed, and you can kind of tell by the sound of the tapping when it's going in and then when it is firmly in place, by just kind of changes pitch. So I'm going to do the same thing with this, except this time I think I'm going to use the wood block. So I'm just going to stick this on here, line it up, and see, you can kind of hear how dun 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 dun, and it just, the pitch changes of the tapping, whether it's on the block or on the vise. So now our bearings are completely installed in here. So now we can go on to installing our front bearing here. So this one I am going to put my glove on and get this crankcase heated up just a bit more. That should be enough. So shield faces out. That one's a little tougher to hear the pitch change. Feels like it should be warm enough. Let's go ahead and get this front bearing, or this main bearing, installed here, and then we'll be done with this task. Is that fully in? Looks to be fully seated. Actually, I think I'm going to tap that one more time. I think I got this. Needs. Didn't look like the flat was fully out here. So there you go. Nice new set of Boca bearings installed. Look how clean that crankshaft or crank counterweight looks now. That's just spectacular. It looked so dirty before. And so yeah, now I am ready to reassemble this engine, and that's all there is to removing and installing bearings in this FS40 4-stroke engine.